Hello, listen. I I have to make this video because I feel like ignorance is kind to the people who are blinded by their own naivety. And I think that the only way for us to enlighten our people is for us to share our knowledge. So yesterday I went to the grocery store and this young lady, she asked me, I was talking and she was the cashier and she was like, "Oh my God, I love your I love the way you talk. I want to learn to speak like you. Can you teach me how to speak like you? I wish somebody could teach me how to speak like you." And I looked at the young lady for a while and then I said, "Listen, you cannot learn to speak. It's not a language that I can teach you or that anybody can teach you. It is a dialect. It is an accent. We speak English. So as long as you know English, you know my language." So she said, um, "Oh, I just love it. I just want to speak like you. I just want to speak like you so bad." And I told her, I said, when I came here to the mainland, because I'm from the Virgin Islands. There are two sets of Virgin Islands. There's US and there's British. So I'm from the United States Virgin Islands. But the United States Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands, in my opinion, I feel like we are one. Because I have family from Tortola. And a lot of us have family from other British islands. And we don't act as though we are not one. We act as though we are one. We don't see that barrier of water between us. But when I came here, I told her I had to adapt to speak like you because to your dialect so that you could understand what I'm saying. And in that instance, I switched and I started to speak like an American, like her. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I see how you're switch hitting right now." So I said, "Yes, because if I spoke to you the way that I'm speaking to her, who is from my country, you would ask me, 'Say what now? What did you say? Can you repeat that? Huh?' So it's like I'm having a one sided conversation. But the only way that I learned how to adapt and speak in your dialect and be able to communicate with you is because I came to live among the mainland Americans. And that being said, it even gets even deeper than that. It switches from state to state because the way that people in the north, like let's say for instance New York, their dialect, their accent is different than the people down south. So she was like, "Oh, oh my goodness, I never thought about that." And I told her, I said, "Well, if you really would like to adapt to the way we speak, you would have to probably live among us for a prolonged period of time. And through prolonged exposure, then you begin to adapt and pick up our dialect." And it gets even deeper than that, people, because I have friends that are Jamaican. And I can't understand when they really speak to each other and they get into that mode of communicating with each other and I'm there, I'm like trying. I mean, I understand certain things because it's broken English, right? I'm from an island. People think that yeah, you could understand, but you cannot really understand. So I just be like, "What you saying? What she saying? What is saying?" You understand what I'm saying? So this is my thing. Even with Spanish people, they get frustrated because when you hear somebody speaking Spanish, you think like a Mexican, a Dominican, and a Puerto Rican. they can all understand each other. And Spanish people, they explain the same thing to us. They're like, I not because I speak Spanish, they speak a different Spanish to me. They speak broken Spanish. Like Spanish itself, the Spaniards from Spain have the real Spanish language. Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Dominicans, Cubans, they all speak a form of Spanish that is considered broken dialect. And that's the same thing like with English. Like English, England, they are the owners of the English language. They own the English language. And we adapted in America the English language because of how America came to be. But all of us, we speak broken English, just like they speak broken Spanish in those islands and those other countries that like Mexico and stuff. We speak broken English, being that we're from the Caribbean, and even them, they speak broken English. So this is the thing. These are the things that I'm trying to explain. And then it gets even deeper than that. Like in the Virgin Islands, I remember growing up, we had to learn how to speak Spanish. And it was part of the curriculum. I remember in the first grade learning how to speak Spanish, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way up to the 12th grade. It was like mandated a part of the curriculum. Even in college, when I went to UVI, Spanish, I'm like, I ain't gonna ever get away from Spanish. But the Spanish that I learned in elementary school allowed me the opportunity to clap out of Spanish at the university level. I just found out about something called a CLEP test, and and Spanish was one of the subjects, and I was like, let me see if I could CLEP this, and I CLEP it. And you take a test to see if you're proficient enough to not take the class, and I did, and I didn't have to take the Spanish at the university level. But the reason why we had to take the Spanish, I realized today, is because we have a large Spanish population, even more so today than back then. But St. Croix, St. Croix was populated by Puerto Ricans way before St. Croix even became a United States Virgin Islands. So St. Croix, the island of St. Croix, have a large Spanish culture. Like they are like really Spanish people. They are fluent in Spanish, a lot of Crucians. And so with St. Thomas now, we have an influx of people from like the Dominican Republic. I mean, we have an influx of people from along the whole Caribbean chain because people in the Caribbean migrate to and from islands, but we have a large influx of Spanish people, whereas our language is shifting to a more heavily populated Spanish mode of communication. So I could see where Spanish was relevant, and even today it is even more relevant. Another thing is, don't stop asking me if I'm from Jamaica because I have an accent or you hear me talking in my accent. I am not from Jamaica. I am from a Caribbean island, and the Caribbean is a crucible of beautiful people. When I say beautiful, I mean beautiful people with diverse cultures. Our cultures are so diverse, but the beauty of it is that they're still so similar because when they stole our ancestors from Africa, the different tribes, and they dropped them off along the chain of these Caribbean islands, we had values, norms, traditions that migrated with them. And so, for instance, let's say let me make an example like our food. We do something called Johnny cake, right? The Jamaicans do the same thing. They call it fry bake. They call it not I'm sorry, they call it fried dumpling. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Guyanese people. They call Johnny cake bake, but that's because they bake it in the oven. They could fry it too, but they bake it in the oven. But the Jamaicans do the same thing. They call it fried dumpling. Or we do something called we do pigeon peas and rice. The Jamaicans call it gongo peas and rice. We do we don't cook ackee, but we cook saltfish. You understand what I'm saying? Our red peas and rice, our peas and rice is peas and rice. When we say I want some peas and rice, we talking about peas and rice with the red kidney beans. They call it rice and peas. So I mean there are so many different things. I mean they don't put sugar in their rice. But let's say for instance like Tatolians, when they I grew up with my family in Tatola cooking, you know, the red peas and rice, the peas and rice, and they put sugar in it. They put sugar in everything. You know, Jamaicans put sugar in oxtail. We don't put sugar in oxtail. I never grew up eating sugar in meat. My family don't cook sugar with meat. But we cook the same things. We just cook it differently. They put a lot of pepper in their food. We season our food where there's a kick, there's a spice, but it's not overly saturated with pepper. And even when I cook and my Jamaican girlfriend comes here to eat, she'll be like, "Where the pepper?" And she pour the pepper on her food. I'm like, how can you cannot savor the flavor if you do that. You understand? But they just, I mean, that's just how, that's their culture. That's how they grow up. So, yes, we are from the Caribbean, but we are not the same island. We not, there's more than one island in the Caribbean. It's not just Jamaica. Okay? And I think that that's something that people need to understand. And it's as simple as reading. You don't even have to pick up a book and read. You have a smartphone. You could Google. You could Google and you could read. You could ask Google any question that you would ask me. Do Virgin Islanders live in huts? Do Virgin Islanders eat monkey? Google. Ask Siri. Well, don't ask Siri because Siri kind of crazy. If you have an iPhone, Siri is off the chain. But you know, it's something that I think that people need to be cognizant of the fact that the things that you ask people from other cultures and the perceptions that you have of people from other cultures, sometimes it's offensive. It can border into being offensive depending on the frequency of the questions from the same person and the level of ignorance that is being asked. It's really offensive. Um, One other thing that I wanted to touch on was the fact that as Caribbean people, I don't feel like we are okay. We have strikes against us already, right? Everybody has strikes against them. If to me, I feel like as Black people, we have strikes against us, right? But as a Black from the Caribbean, there is even a greater strike up here. And I'm not playing this race card, okay? I'm not playing the white versus Black. I'm talking about intraracial discrimination. I'm talking about I've encountered stuff like y'all coming here trying to take our jobs, or you know, you need to go back where you from, go back where you're from. No, you know, you're Black like me. Some people who have said these things to me are even blacker than me. They're darker than me in pigmentation. But you have the nerve, the audacity to discriminate against me because I am from an island? Like, really? Really? You don't face the same challenges in this country that I face because I have an accent? I could keep my mouth shut and you will be none the wiser. So that's just, and then they think that like they don't understand our culture. They don't understand like how we communicate. Like they feel like I was told one time like um you're an angry Black woman. I am not an angry Black woman. We are taught to speak when spoken to. We are taught to speak up. We are taught to articulate. We are taught to look people directly in the eyes when you're speaking to them. We are taught if you don't have nothing to say, then don't say nothing at all. We are taught to have manners, say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's like when I started working on the mainland, people, they don't have any respect for each other in the sense of like even in the workplace, they'll call you by your first name. I was kind of like taken aback when somebody sent me an email and say like my first name, and I'm like, what happened to Miss, whoever my last name is? Why you calling me by my first name? You don't know me. That's kind of familiar. But I had to learn to adapt because that's when in Rome you do as the Romans do, and that's what the Romans do. But I don't change my way of doing it. I don't say miss this or miss that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I still maintain my culture because I feel like that is the proper thing to do. That is respect. That is the respect. I'm not gonna lose my respect. I'm not gonna gain the world and lose my soul, lose my value, my cultures, and my tradition that my family have instilled in me. So, I mean, they're just different things, but I feel like it's been my experience that we're not kind of respected among our own up here in the mainland. We're not. And finally, another thing is the last thing is Jamaicans, they talk different to us. Okay? So when you hear me talking, just know that I am not you got to be smart enough to listen to the way people talk to understand. Because up here they get offended if you ask them if you call them a Yankee. Like where we from, we call everybody from the States Yankees. But they up here in the South, they like to say, I'm not a Yankee, I'm a Southerner. A Yankee is someone from up north. I'm a Southerner. So then don't get upset or don't get confused when I get offended if you call me a Jamaican. Because, like, for instance, my friend, let me give you an example. My friend will call me and she'll say, where you there? Me there, me yard. And if I was to call her and say the same thing, I would say, which part you is? I my house. I home, where you is? You know, it's our accent is more subtle and sing-songy. Their accent is more aggressive and bold, and you could get even deeper into why things are the way they are with regards to the differences in accents and approaches and stuff along the different island chains if you get into studying the slave trade and know that the most aggressive slaves were settled or dropped off on the island of Jamaica. They were like the radical slaves, the warriors. They are the settlers of Jamaica. So I'm just saying, you just have to be a little bit more cognizant of cultures. You have to get yourself a little bit more knowledgeable when because you're dealing in a diverse world. And sometimes the things that we do, we take for granted that everybody is cool with it. And among the world, among the globe, there is a common consensus that Americans are the rudest set of people. We don't want to be considered as such. So let's get with it, people. Get rid of.